We're live. They say we're live. We're alive. Look alive, they say. Hello, everybody. It's me, Rose Kaz, and I'm so excited, y'all. I am joined yet again by a dear friend, a colleague, a sister in arms, as our mutual friend and leader, Brenda Williams, calls women like us as leaders, light leaders. And I'm talking about, a little bit of woo, but also let's show the way to something different. Joined today by Tamara Johnson-Shealey. And I'm going to give this gal her flowers. Let me give a full introduction to Tamara because we have worked together in a variety of ways. In fact, Tamara is one of the most inspirational women that I met during lockdown, when I was thinking, okay, what am I going to be doing with my business? What am I going to be doing with my life? What the world is calling for, a whole new situation, right? What can we actually be doing that's different? And so Tamara and I met on Clubhouse, and she's talking about, kind of having these cross aisle conversations with people who are quite frankly dangerous and scary. And she's like, nope, this is about a relationship. I'm going to build a relationship. I'm a person, you're a person, and let's have a conversation. I'm like, man, this woman's fearless. I want to listen to her. I want to learn from her. And so it is my honor to invite Tamara to the season 3 unveil of Money, Sex, and Politics. No matter where you're tuning in, you're going to see those words spelled differently because apparently those are still hot topics, especially for women to be speaking about in this world in this time. Tamara, I'm going to list all of some really interesting receipts that you have because you don't often lead with those. In a minute, I'm going to share that. But first, I want to pass the mic to you and say welcome. Thank you for being here. How do you continue to be such an amazing force of light amidst all the darkness? I mean, how do you do it? You're an incredible inspiration to me. And thank you for being here.
Oh my goodness, Rose. It is absolutely a pleasure to be with you again. I miss you from those Clubhouse days. We had a lot of fun. As crazy as that time was, I'm telling you, meeting you and meeting so many others, it has been relationships that I can't ever say enough about. So it is my absolute pleasure to be here with you today and to have this conversation. Staying in the fight is only by the grace of God, literally.
Yeah, we have to have that grace for ourselves. We have to have it for others, and we have to look to other places outside of just our human existence for that grace. So I appreciate you lead with that. So Tamara, she comes to us from the beauty and barber industry. And so that means if y'all get your haircut ever, the person behind the chair is listening to you. They're like hairists. They do your hair, but they're therapists, right? Unofficial, but official. So she knows how to listen. But also she has run for Georgia State Senate, not once, not twice, 3 times. And then so that was 2014, 16, and 18 candidate for the Georgia Senate District 40, former 2020 and 2022 candidate for the U.S. Senate in Georgia, placed 6th, by the way, in a field of 21 candidates in 2020, garnering 100,767 votes. That's a lot of votes, y'all. And those count. We are counting those votes. Miss Tamara is also a Georgia registered lobbyist. She is the lead organizer for the Concerned Beauty and Barber Professionals. See, because I said they're unofficial therapists, right? It's an advocacy group that addresses health and safety in the beauty and barber industry. Tamara is also the lead advocate for Pahlotics, Beauty and Barber, and another advocacy group that works to strengthen the professional licensing. Another advocate, this is a woman, she's coming through with her advocacy for Reparations Sunday. She has written 2 books, and y'all, if that's not enough, Miss Tamara is an avid learner and holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Information Science and a JS from Emory in the fine state of Georgia. Emory's in Georgia, right? Or is it North Carolina?
It's Georgia. It's a JM.
A JM. Getting my letter straight. So y'all, this woman has receipts. Not that you have to have receipts to have soul like Tamara, but she is coming through with the education and the care and the consideration. And specifically why I wanted to talk with Tamara again on this podcast is because we're talking about showing up in a different way for democracy. And we're over here, we're on LinkedIn. It is not business as usual, y'all. Okay. We can't just be like, no, let's keep focusing on the KPIs. No, what's Q2 coming through? This is a different moment. This is not the same politics as usual. Oh, the Democrats are this, and oh, the Republicans are that, and oh my God, the world's always a mess. No. This is a different kind of mess. So what we're talking about is how we show up on social, how we show up in business, how we show up differently, because quite frankly, our humanity depends on it. So I'm going to pass it over to Tamara. I would love for you to share with us a little bit about not just like the accolades of your journey through your different professions and your career path, but really specifically why this moment in time, as somebody who has traveled quite a few routes and many distance to be here, and why this moment matters most to really stand up in a different and perhaps stronger way than we have before.
Yeah, Rose, we really have no choice. I mean, this is our country together, and it looks different to a lot of people, but this is home, right? This America is home. So we have to learn how to take care of each other. Even when we don't agree, we have to learn to be there for each other and work together. We have to be intentional, those of us in politics, about reaching across that aisle. Just because you carry a D or you carry an R doesn't mean that we don't collaborate. This is our country, and we have to have those tough conversations. We can't shy away from them. We can't run from them. We have to have those hard conversations, and sometimes agree to disagree and give it a minute. Like sometimes you have to walk away and say, okay, we've gotten absolutely nowhere. But just the fact that you're having the conversation and you keep trying, we'll get somewhere at some point. So I'm not a quitter, Rose. I think the root of that is I'm just not a quitter. We can't quit. And I just don't quit on people, because if we're here and you're breathing and there's life in your body, like we can't quit on each other. So even in these times politically where everything is so divisive and people are, taking one side over the other and pointing a finger and they're angry, and, a lot of people are just lost. Some people are just confused, and some people are just like have checked out. None of us can afford to do any of that. We have to, again, we got to take care of each other. And again, this is our country. We need good water. We need, food. We need each other. So we can't afford to not be engaged, because everything is political. The shoes you wear, the car you drive, the air you breathe, everything is political. There is nothing that doesn't have a political component to it. So I just believe we can't stop, and we can't stop trying, Rose. We just can't stop trying.
And it's important, I think, to say that the trying looks a little different for everybody. And if we got to take a beat and go, like, I've been sleeping more than I've slept for a really long time in the last couple of days, just because I'm trying to like really preserve my energy so that when I show up, whether it's on these conversations online, in person, however we're activating, right? And to your point, I think, there's people in this world that'll be like, oh, I'm not political, I don't politic or whatever. You're right. The shoes, the gas, the everything are food, right? And so it's going to be if not already, it's going to be any second now where these choices of not getting engaged or not participating aren't going to be an option. And so the hope is that we can, through this conversation, through this dialogue, and particularly through LinkedIn, not business as usual, really show up in curious, but also kindly assertive ways that like we're not backing down when we're talking about fundamental considerations of food, water, air, like living in healthy ways, right? Like we can't live without these basic things. And this is what is actually on the chopping block: medical care, right? These are, and I want to be really, really clear, like as a white appearing person, I know that there's some people that I've talked to that are like, Rose, way to wake up. There's people of color, there's communities, indigenous folks that have been struggling for access to this kind of fairness for a very long time, which, trust, I overstand that. And what the call in these conversations is to say, so now that we are all becoming more aware of what we're working with, what are we actually doing about it? And so specifically this conversation about the brand of democracy, right, is like, what are we actually showing up for if we're not showing up for the demos, like the people, right? The actual word, the root of democracy is people, not just a couple people, not just those people, not just people who look like that or talk like that or walk like that. It's all of us people. And so, Tamara, will you talk a little bit more about the relationship building that you've been doing up and down that coast? I know you were going down to Florida. You were deep in some MAGA country, and now we're regular phone call chats. I'm like, you call me when you get back to the hotel, sister friend, because I want to make sure. This is a fearless woman, y'all. And look at, like, Tamara, she's got a little darker complexion than me. Like, she has a different experience in a MAGA room than I do. But we're both women, and we both, so this is important to call out that, like, you are putting yourself and your ethics, like, right squarely, and not in a way that is like, listen here. I find that your leadership is so kind but fierce. And so can you talk a little bit about continuing relationships and conversations that really are truly across the aisle and how that has been leading your work? It's important to mention also, Tamara was at the Capitol in Georgia yesterday, held a press conference. She had multiple reporters showing up. And just before that, was it last week, 2 weeks ago, you were up at the nation's capital in DC. You're regularly showing up in the places where the power is trying to just be usurped and grabbed and saying, not on my watch, sir, not on my watch. So talk a little bit about your brass tacks and how you continue to shine the light back and say, this is not how we're going forward.
They have to see us. I mean, we can get mad and we can be on social media, or we can talk amongst ourselves. But until you show up in those places where those are power moves. When you're in Washington, they're making power moves. When you're at your nation's capital, your state's capital rather, that's where the bills and the laws are being written that affect you and affect everybody around you. So you have to show up. You have to show up. You have to make your voices heard, because they're going to do what they're going to do if you're not there. But if you're there, at least they have you can kind of put the brakes on some of this. Stop some of these things from happening, or at least have your voice be heard, right? Because sometimes they don't know what they don't know, and they need to hear from everyday regular people, because sometimes they make decisions that just benefit those that are there, special interest groups, lobbyists. And I've registered as a lobbyist only because I've had to. Sometimes showing up, advocacy and lobbying are two different things. Advocacy is the organizing. That's where we come together as people and we work as a collective. But sometimes it takes those one-on-one conversations. Sometimes it takes you to actually sit down with a legislator or sit down with a person in power and just have a conversation that, that badge sometimes will get you in a door, in a space where advocacy won't. So I've had to register, and I'm really I'm quite comfortable in this space, because I do go to places where people normally won't go. I've gone inside of the MAGA movement, and honestly, there's some good people in there. I don't know, I see it and I hear it, and I know that there's people there that probably don't appreciate this dark brown woman being in that space, but I've never had a problem. Nobody's never said anything to me that I felt was disrespectful. I've never had a problem, and I've actually had people to ask me questions, and that's the part that's so encouraging, Rose. I am a reparationist, and I speak very boldly about the need for repair of Black America, specifically those of us who are descendants of chattel slavery. So when I go into those spaces, they know who I am, and some people have actually pulled me to a side that you would think probably would never have a conversation with me, and ask me questions about reparations and what this is and why, and ask me, and I love it. I appreciate that. Like, I love it when somebody that may not see this the way I see it, when they ask me a question and I have an opportunity to share and maybe plant a seed. Maybe they won't change, but I planted my seed. Maybe somebody else will come along and water it. So I like it, and I don't know if that's a challenge for me, but I like, Rose, going into these places and spaces where people don't agree. I like that.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that for a second. I'm not a therapist. I'm not even a therapist. I don't want to get into the, like, what does that really mean for you? Because what I really want to shine the light on is that you do that and you're not scared to do it. I feel very kin to you. I have not done that thing, and I don't, I have, again, lighter skin than you, right? So it'll be a different experience for me. But that same sort of way of, like, keeping, like, I'm not afraid to show up for these important things, right? And what I want to point out is that there are people who will be afraid to do that. right? Regardless of what their gender is, regardless of how dark or light their skin is, regardless of how much money they have or they don't have. And that's okay, because there's people like Tamara and myself who will do it. But the point of the matter is we need y'all to show up in the best way that you can, to stay curious and to stay kind and have these cross-aisle conversations, so that when people like Tamara and I are getting into those nooks and crannies that you maybe don't want to go into, we've kind of done this thing where we've work together in a weird, like, this is me on the woo side of things, is like we all have power and we can all affect change a little bit more. And it might sound like, Tamara going up to the nation's capital and walking those halls and having conversations as an advocate, and being in Georgia State Capitol as a lobbyist, and those little, like, oh man, that's a lot of work for how much change are you making? Well, if everybody did a little bit more, right? Whether it is going to your capital or calling your senators, calling your representatives, showing up, that is the groundswell that every person could affect the change of, right? I think it's something like we only need 1/16 of the population of this country from a numbers perspective to actually make things shift. We've seen it before in different legislative processes, from the state, from your municipality to your state to your national interest. The actual ratio of the amount of people you need to get groundswell, it is not as big as we think. And so if y'all are like, I'm not gonna go pack up. Tamara's over here. She's in an RV going up to the DC on a regular cadence, y'all. She's camping out, okay? If that's not your vibe, I don't camp, okay? I don't camp. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go for like a night and be like, what am I going to do? But I got my ways to do it. My gal Tutu over here, she's like 80 years old. I kid you not. This woman is 80 years young, okay? She's like, Rose, are we going to the rally on Saturday? You want to go with me to the rally, and then we'll go to the art museum and have lunch and look at the scarves? Bless you, Tutu. I will meet you at the museum, because I'm not going to do the rally this weekend. I'm just not. I'm just not going to be me. But I'm going to do some other shit, right? So we all got to find our ways. And Tutu's going to be out there with her walker. Bless her. I'm like, I will pick you up. You don't have to take the streetcar. I'll pick you up. But we're all doing something to shift the needle is the point. And so, Tamara, going back to the through line here, right? Relationship building. Again, LinkedIn. What do people do on their network, right? From a perspective of a brand that is authentic, so that like you get known for this thing, right? Tamara reached out to me the other day and said, okay, I got this thing going on. It's called Polish and Politics. And I was like, you can check out, you see her URL right there under her name. I was like, wait a sec. I love me a good polish. I can't help but talk about politics. Fun fact, by the way, when I was a younger Rose, I worked as a bartender, and my mom was like, how do you like your bartending job? I feel like you really like that. And I was like, I love it, but people just kind of stopped talking to me after a few minutes. And she's like, why? What are you talking about? And I was like, I don't know, like politics and stuff. She's like, you don't talk about politics at the bar, Rose. And I was like, why not? Like, what? Like, it's like, I'm just like, why not? Right. So I just appreciate that we can have this conversation anywhere. Then you're going to put polish with it, get our nails did, and have a little political conversation. And that is so on brand for you, Tamara, because like you keep it shiny and bright, and you don't allow the topics to go into the like gloom and doom. And so we talk a little bit about how in your relationship building, in building this brand of Tamara Johnson-Shealey, over running for office and being an advocate and being a lobbyist, why are you keeping it shiny? Why do you throw polish on the top of that? Talk a little bit about that.
So I was a nail tech, Rose, in my other life. I come from the beauty and barber industry. I was a nail tech for 18 years. I love doing nails. Physically, your body, you can only take so much of the bending over and, the stress on your body. But I loved my career as a nail technician. And that's what led me into politics, me watching my industry politically, which led me into starting the organizations that address health and safety and the politics behind the beauty and barber industry. But I love that. So my tagline is, find me at the intersection of politics and beauty. because I'm there, right? And I'm here. And it's like, so women, we love, most women love to have their nails nice and pretty, like a little color. So yeah, so it just makes sense that we could come together. And if you see behind me, I have a retail brand that I absolutely love. I used it my entire career, most of my career. Let me repeat that, most of my career, because I tried to use some of the other brands, but this line, vegan friendly, doesn't have the toxic ingredients in it. Polish is a hormone disruptor, and if women don't know, even getting those nail services where you're cured under UV light, that's it. That is toxic. It is toxic to your health. So we're just trying to show women that you can still have beautiful, beautiful nails without the toxicity, and the polish, the colors are absolutely amazing, and it lasts a long time. You can get up to 2 weeks with no chipping. So if again, to me, that intersection of politics and beauty is where I am.
Well, and that's like we talked about this the other day too, is where are the places and spaces, much like the rooms that you and I find ourselves in that we wouldn't necessarily otherwise be in, where we can help facilitate conversations that otherwise feel hard or unapproachable, or like we can't, we couldn't, we shouldn't. And I feel like, and you know this because you'd worked for so many years in that industry, but even for somebody who's been, the guest at such places and sitting at desks and in chairs, is like the conversations that happen between one and the other, the stylist and the patron, or the person who's getting the service, the person who's giving the service. That is it's a very intimate sort of conversation, right? And I think about, for example, my sister and her girlfriends, and she's recently been telling me that, like, oh, it's really wild, about a bunch of my girlfriends who are also mothers are realizing that, like, we don't really have to deal with this shit like this. We just have been told to deal with this shit. Now she's talking specifically about like rear-end kids and not necessarily having the support of the partner like it might show that she's getting the support of the partner, right? But like kind of pushing back on like, what are the standards that we say we must live under, right? As women, as caregivers. And I think about places and spaces like salons, specifically when we're getting our nails done, where we can talk a little bit more candidly, and in ways it's like, you know what? I actually don't really appreciate that. You know what else? I don't really want to do that anymore. It's like the real, right? And I'll add to that is, after the 2016 elections, I was amazed at how many women from my hometown in Chicago reached out to me. Now, these are white ladies, right? These are educated white ladies, and they're spilling the tea, in salons, in little conversations, saying, I did not mean to vote for this guy, okay? Like, I wasn't really trying to do that, but I did because my husband was voting for him. And I've always just voted how my husband votes, right? And the real from that conversation, I started to see like, okay, cool. Like, this is bad, right? We're in a bad situation. But what I'm seeing is more women are going, okay, wait. Let me just see. I'm going to advocate for myself a little bit differently here. I'm going to have these conversations with more women and say, like, did you do that too? Like, are you like, how do you feel about this? And I think this idea of polish and politics, particularly just as a brand, as a consideration, as a place to land with conversations that are otherwise like, where do I have these? People like you and me, Tamara, we're like, we're going to have them on the sidewalk. We're going to have it at the coffee shop. We're going to have it, we're going to have it at the doctor's office. We're going to have it on the internet. But some people, women and men, are like, I don't know. So polish and politics. Now you're going to do some pop-ups with these, right? Like this is
yes.
Okay. Tell us more about that.
Oh yes, that's the part I'm excited about. I'm hopeful to make my way around. I love people. I love polish. Politics is a part of this nation right now. We have to be engaged. So yeah, I'm hopeful to do some pop-ups. But I have my first event coming in April 26th. In Washington, D.C., at the Thurgood Marshall Center. So I'm excited about that. It'll be my first Polish and Politics, and hopeful to get some virtual participation for those that can't be there in person. It's a small setting, which is perfect. But those that can't be, we can do this virtually. And the first half hour or so, we're just going to kind of play it by ear. But the first half hour, we're going to do our nails. And I'm going to walk you through what it takes to do your own nails at home. And it's a pampering experience when you do this. Like once you get into doing your own nails, it becomes a pampering experience. It's inexpensive. And again, the fact that you're using some really great products, your polish will last. I'll show you how to give yourself the best manicure at home, which is as simple as pushing your cuticles back in the shower, Rose. I mean, just the simple things you do at home, using what you have in your cabinet for your oils, coconut oil, olive oil, whatever you have, just using that for a moisturizer for your cuticles. It's so many simple things that we can do to still be beautiful. And then again, we'll get into those conversations, those political conversations, and how we as women, this next generation, those of us that are emerging or, are in this, how we really collaborate, reach across that aisle and really help this nation to heal, because there's a lot of healing. And women, we're nurturers, right? At our core, the healing that needs to come, it's going to come through us.
I appreciate that, because if anyone's just catching parts of this conversation, they're like, politics, branding, coconut oil. What are we talking about here? Nails? What are we talking about here? But right, like it is important for us to realize that, like, if we're showing up and showing out, we also have to take care of ourselves, right? Like a little moisturizer goes a long way, but also just like taking a minute, taking a beat to give a little bit of that self-care, which I feel like is a super overused word, honest, or set of words, but like really, dedicating some time and making sure that you're not just like, or I'm not, or we aren't just like allowing. I say this from experience of like just being on the, okay, I see the vision and I'm going to keep cranking on whatever the project is, specifically around, showing up stronger and louder and not letting our voices be muted. But also that there is the consideration of just like doing a little pause. So I really appreciate that you're doing this pop-up that allows for a little pause, little beautification, and also staying on the real, right? Talking about shit that really matters, and hopefully encouraging those spaces and places for people who would otherwise say, like, I'm not really going to get into a political debate or a political conversation, and keeping it light. I just had my first meetup here that I've run. I've done a bunch of stuff collaboratively, but I was really thrilled to pop together this bit of programming, super light, no pressure, sort of a pop-up with this amazing tea company and this amazing whiskey company for a sort of not finale, because as we know, women's history is more than just a month, as is Black history, as is all of the important history to note. But we had an end of March little happy hour last Friday, and kept the programming light, kept the conversation focused on like celebrating the accomplishments of women as leaders. And what ended up coming from it in this like really casual kind of open space was a lot of vulnerability, a lot of considerations of just showing up boldly without any agenda, or without feeling that, the introverted person had to be exceptionally extroverted, or the extroverted person had to, sort of sit back. We all were able to meet each other where we're at. And I think that's the real consideration here as we sort of land the plane is, Tamara, as a leader, I see you showing up consistently to meet people where they're at. And that's important right now. That is the most important brand of democracy that I could stand behind and talk about pretty much all day, every day. And so I appreciate that very much, that you do that. And I give so much grace and gratitude for the tenacity that you have going to DC, going to Georgia's state capital. And thank you. Just thank you for doing that. People can support Tamara and her initiative. Here's that link one more time. And Tamara, would you again just tell us the dates of that pop-up in DC for the Polish and Politics, and anything else you have that you want to make sure people know about going ahead in these wild times that we are finding ourselves within?
I know they are wild, but you know what? I think about it like I'm not one that likes to go to Six Flags or likes to do these crazy rides. I don't do any of that. But I feel like it, I watch people do it and they put their hands in the air and they just like, what? They're just like all excited. I think we just got to do the same thing even right now. Like get into this and just realize we're on a ride. We got to smile through it, and we got to balance it. Again, polish and politics. That's my way of balancing it again with self-care, and having these tough conversations, but still loving on each other again as women. And doing this great work. So again, I'm Tamara Johnson-Shealey, and you can go to my website, tamarashealey.com. Everything is there. You can support me however you like. Join the email list, please. Stay abreast, because I am determined to hit the road and be out there more consistently than I am. I love meeting people. I love going into communities, talking to people, engaging, figuring out where the need is. And when we find out where the need is, I'm a part of a collaborative where we actually do work with communities and cities, trying to figure out, like, how do we help you? Because ultimately it's about people helping people.
Preach. It's absolutely what it's about. You're right. I stopped riding those roller coasters. I was like around 25 years old, because I was like, hold on, this whole like adulting shit is scary as hell. Like, I got my hands in the air the whole time going like, what? But also, right, we gotta drink water, okay? We gotta like sleep, we gotta take care, we gotta moisturize.
I don't got my water. I'm with you.
I'm gonna take off my puffy sleeves real quick. I wore this shirt for this conversation. I want to make sure I can show it to you. I forgot to show it to you in the green room.
There are those who will change history, and those who will do what? Be sad they didn't try. Oh, that part. Look, we will live with no regrets, Rose. We're gonna ride this train. We're gonna ride these roller coasters till the wheels fall off, baby.
Let's go. Shout out to Mess in a Bottle, super awesome woman of color company who makes these t-shirts. I may have gotten a size too small, hence you get a little wraparound situation over here. But
you're wearing it well, girl.
You know what? This is the body I have right now. So, Tamara, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the work you do. Everybody, click through that link that I popped through. You can see it. And again, if you're in the DC area, Polish and Pahlotics, I might just have to get over there for that pop-up, because that's so on brand for me and democracy. Thank you again.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Rose. Thank you.
Likewise. And